Okay, now in this video we're going to look at actually adding mesh, a couple of the basic commands, and let's get you to start playing around with things. At this point there's absolutely nothing that you can mess up. So we're going to take this week to play around, get used to scaling, grabbing, and that sort of thing. Now the very first thing though, there is one setting I forgot to show you prior to, and that is down in the right hand corner there will normally be your scene statistics. For some reason in 2.9 they did away with it being defaulted turned on. So to turn it on, we're going to come down here on this bottom toolbar, right click, and come up here and make sure scene statistics and Blender version are checked. This will help too if you ever are asking for help on something. It helps to be able to see the interface and see what that's showing so that we know more about, me meaning the other teachers that I work with and myself, we have more information on what's actually there. So that's an important one. Now, to add mesh, there's two ways that you can do it. You can come up here and you can just click on the button and add plane, cube, circle, sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, torus, grid, or monkey. And okay, Suzanne the monkey, she's been around, well, she's the Blender icon. And you will often see her used in different things. That's how she is by default. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete her right now, which is X, delete, and then I'm going to use the keyboard shortcuts so that you can start getting used to them. Shift and A brings up your add menu. Okay, and let's add a cube. Now, obviously, while you're in object mode, such as we are here, you are limited on what you can do here. Which I'm using the middle mouse button to zoom pan around. It is a very handy, well, it's one of the reasons why you really do need to have a 3-button mouse when working in Blender. Now in object mode, you are for the most part limited to scaling, which is S, or grabbing, which is G. You can't do any fine movements. And of course, Control Z does undo, just like it does in most programs anymore. Most of the work, though, will be done in edit mode. Now, before I go to edit mode, I should have explained the tabs up here. Layout and modeling are essentially the exact same thing. The difference being modeling, edit mode is your default when you first go into it. Layout, object mode is your default when you first go into it. The sculpting tab we will touch on later on. It is a very complex subject. UV editing. This is where we take the UV, or where we make the UV map or arrange it for our mesh so that we can texture. This is a very important thing, but like this is a default cube, which works where we haven't changed anything really for the cube. But once you start making changes, this default doesn't work. Texture painting we're going to skip right now. Animation, rendering, and composing we're going to skip for now. Shading is where we will be doing our texturing, and this is where we need the Node Wrangler. So we will be getting with it, just not this week, because this week, like I said, I want you to play around. I do 90% of my work in layout, where most people will use the modeling or, you know, whatever floats their boat. But to switch between the two, or switch between edit and object modes easily and quickly, is just tab key. You could go through here and select it from the menu. But yeah, just your tab key does all of it. So tab into edit mode. Now in this case I am in vertex select, which is right here. This is edge select, and as you can see now the dots that you had here have disappeared. That's because now when you select, it's for an entire edge. Okay, and then the last one there is face select. Now, Blender is very specific on things, which is why, like if you're using the mouse key, or a laptop keyboard, you might have to use the number pad emulator, because the number pad will change your view. 1 is front, 3 is to the side, 7 is top, okay, it wasn't Alt, sorry. I usually don't go on that. Okay, so Control 1 is the back, Control 3 is the other side, and Control 7 is the bottom. Now 5 will take you between perspectives of orthographic and perspective. If you are trying to zoom in on something and you're clipping, let me get here. Okay, and of course it's not going to do it to me right now. But a lot of times when you try to get in close on something, it clips and you can't see it. And when that happens, if you change perspective, you can get in a lot closer. Now, so remember, it is Shift A to add a mesh, Tab to go into edit mode. Your number pad numbers will change your view. Your keyboard numbers for 1, 2, and 3. 1 puts you into vertex select mode. 2 puts you into edge select mode, which, let's see, that's edge select. That's vertex select. Because those are called vertices, by the way. Those little round dots. And 3 puts you into face select. So this week, what I want you to do is I want you to just play around, adding mesh, moving it around. You can even come through here. Let me go into Edge Vertex Select to make this easier to show. And where I'd shown you that G grabbed, the same commands work throughout. So I can do G here with just the one vertex selected, and I can move it wherever I want. Same goes, well, with scale, you pretty much have to have more than one selected. So I am going to hold down my Shift key and select all 4 of those. Then I'm going to hit my S for scale. And I change that. Now another thing that you can do, A selects all. Double clicking the A will make sure you deselect everything. But you can also go through and do select all and then Shift D. Shift D is how you copy. After you've copied, make sure you hit your space bar, your enter key, or even your left mouse button. And then let's grab that apart here so it's in a different location. And now you have 2 of them that you can play around with. So yeah, for this week, go ahead and play around with your G for grab, your S for scale, your A for select or deselect, your Shift D to copy, your Shift A to add mesh, and just kind of get used to those shortcuts, playing around with it, making sure that you're comfortable with actually adding a mesh in and doing some basic changing of parts of it. This is also a good time to look at some of the different mesh options because, okay, like those were cubes. Let me come out here, and I showed you Suzanne, but we've also got the circle, which, okay, let me get rid of these cubes. I will just get rid of all of that. Yes, which X is for delete. Which, okay, what I just did brought up another thing. Whenever you copy or you add a mesh, if you are in edit mode on something else when you do it, those items will become part of the same mesh that you're in edit on. If you tab into object mode first, they will all be their own individual meshes. So depending on what you're doing, that's something that you may want to keep in mind. Now, as you can see, the circle here is just empty, but has lots of uses at times. I'll tab into edit mode so you can see, which there are adjustments that can be made on it. We will go over later. Okay, so that's the circle. Shift A. Icosphere. Now, I actually like playing around with the icosphere, but I love geometry stuff. Oh, okay, and where I clicked off, I need to just totally delete this now. Icosphere. Oh, that's the wrong sphere. Sorry. Icosphere. Now you see where this menu is down here. It didn't open up, but that is an actual menu. And that menu will help you with, depending on the mesh, is going to be your options. Like with this one, I have my subdivisions. And as you can see, the more subdivisions I have, the smoother it looks. But be careful with that, because that might look smoother, but that's going to have a hell of a land impact in SL. So that's something you always need to keep in mind. Low poly modeling has its downsides. This happens to be one of them. And once you have made adjustments on that, you can just click anywhere on the screen and you'll be done. And as you've seen, I hit the space bar. This happens a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you. The space bar controls the timeline down here. This is normally only used for cloth simulation and animation type stuff. So not something we will be messing with right now. But unfortunately, the shift key turns it on, and the space key turns it on, and the space key turns it off. So as you can see, go, stop. Not something we need to worry about right now, but if you have that come up saying that you've got frames moving, you know now why and how to stop it. And of course, if you have any questions on stuff this week, do not hesitate to ask me. I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you come up with. But for now, this is going to put an end to the videos for this week. And I'm going to get them uploaded to YouTube tonight so that you guys can watch them tomorrow. Enjoy!